And moving on now, more information coming out today regarding the trial of Private First Class Bradley Manning. In an attempt to reach a deal with the government, the accused WikiLeaks defense team appears to be trying to work out some sort of deal with the government to get things moving forward again. A statement released by Bradley Manning's defense attorney, David Combs, said, quote, PFC Manning has offered to plead guilty to various offenses through a process known as pleading by exceptions and substitutions. To clarify, PFC Manning is not pleading guilty to the specifications as charged by the government. Rather, PFC Manning is attempting to accept responsibility for offenses that are encapsulated within or are a subset of the charged offenses. The court will consider whether this is a permissible plea. So if it's not a plea deal Manning is after, then what is it? And what are the chances that the court will accept this deal? Well, for more on the case of the Bradley Manning, I'm joined by Josh Gerstein, White House reporter for Politico. Hey there, Josh. Can you first off go ahead and explain to us what exactly is going down here? Can you break down these latest developments?
Well, it sounds like it's not a plea deal, but it's more of a plea bargain offer from Manning and his lawyers. There's a very serious charges Manning's facing, including aiding the enemy, which is punishable by life in prison in this case. And so they're trying to basically make sort of an opening bid, perhaps, or maybe it's a middle of the game bid, to put up some more minor charges or more minor offenses and see if the government might basically say, well, you know what, if you're willing to plead to that, that's good enough.
And the court can always reject this, or they can accept it and they can still try him for some of the other things that they have him for. He's facing, of course, up to life in prison, given the 22 counts. But can you explain to us, as the viewers, and to myself, what's the point of doing this if the court can simply accept it but charge him anyway?
Well, I think the defense team here is trying to dramatize the way that Manning has been charged. A lot of people feel that the case is overcharged, meaning that based on what Manning allegedly did here, to charge him with aiding the enemy for posting something on the internet, for example, is taking things a step too far. And I think the defense is either whether it's a plea deal or whether it's just sort of a public bid to emphasize the fact that Manning is being punished too seriously or facing too serious punishment. I think that's basically the gambit the defense is pursuing. But you're right, the court has to decide whether to accept this, and then ultimately the military itself decides whether they want to press forward with the most serious charges that Manning's facing.
So what good could possibly come out of this other than, of course, public sympathy?
Well, it brings attention to others in the military that are outside the direct chain of command dealing with this case on a day-in, day-out basis, that there's a way to resolve this without necessarily going to the mat with a full court-martial. It's also interesting that Manning decided he doesn't want to be tried by sort of a jury of his peers, of other military officers and soldiers, but said that he'd rather be tried by a judge.
All of that is really interesting that's coming out of this case. Of course, things are still hazy. We're still trying to figure all of this out. But we know that the pretrial hearing that's going on right now is to determine whether the court and prosecutors are delaying his right to a speedy trial. So what role will this play in speeding up the trial, or will it play anything at all?
I don't think it will delay the trial, but this issue of speedy trial is an important one. You know, it was put off for months and months and months, more than a year, basically, as things went forward. And the hearing that's been going forward today, according to the blog reports and others we're seeing out from Fort Meade, Maryland, indicates that the military's been trying to explain why it was there were something like 8 or 9 separate delays in the case. And not all the reasons seem to be great ones. One that seems to have come out is that some of the people involved only wanted to work on the weekends because they didn't want to bring Manning into these official government buildings during the week because people might gawk at him, basically.
Absolutely. And I know that, meanwhile, I just want to switch gears just a little bit. Meanwhile, the 7th person was charged under the Espionage Act this week. That's a Navy linguist stationed in Bahrain named James Hitzelberger. He was allegedly, he's accused of copying intelligence files that were leaked to Stanford University. And although President Obama was reelected, it doesn't seem like we're getting much of a change in terms of prosecuting these people in the second term, right?
Well, so far we're not, and I don't see that there's any reason to expect a dramatic change. I think, as you guys have covered extensively, there's been now many more such prosecutions under Obama than all previous presidents combined, I should say, and it looks like this pattern is going to continue.
And go ahead and can you explain a little bit this Espionage Act that all of these people are falling into? I know that it was created during the World War I era. Is it antiquated?
Well, it's certainly very broad, and most of it deals with espionage, with taking military secrets or defense secrets and giving them to someone who's an agent of a foreign power. But there's a part in it that's basically very, very broad and elastic that says that if you take military or defense secrets, whether you get them legitimately or illegitimately, and you pass them on to another person, and that can be anyone else who's not authorized to receive them, you've committed a very serious felony. And that's the provision that had been used very, very rarely before President Obama came into office. And now, as you say, we've seen come up in 7 different criminal cases. Some of it might simply, though, be the fact of the advent of the internet, and it is true now that it's a lot easier to put information out there that everyone, be they friends and enemies alike, has access to.
And I do want to focus on Julian Assange. Of course, Bradley Manning and Julian Assange kind of go hand in hand when it comes to discussing the leaked cables that were hundreds of thousands of documents, and also that documentary, that movie, the clip that made WikiLeaks famous. It put it on the map, the Collateral Murder video. So it looks like the information, the latest information that we're hearing is that the grand jury is still investigating Julian Assange. Can you talk a little bit about the developments in his case?
Well, there's a document that came out either yesterday or the day before out of a federal court in Virginia that shows that there's still an ongoing criminal investigation into WikiLeaks. It sounds like the federal government plans to keep that investigation open probably until this Bradley Manning case is completed. If there were ever a plea deal with Manning and the government, it's possible there might be pressure for him to become a witness and to testify against Julian Assange. We heard earlier in the Manning trial that there were some indications that Assange had indicated he might be willing to help Manning break passwords to get into military computers. So that's something the government still seems very interested in getting to the bottom of.
Josh Gerstein, White House reporter for Politico, thank you so much for bringing us those latest developments.
Okay, thanks.